Hey everybody, welcome back to the 117th episode of Taps and Patience. I am AJ with Audacity Micro, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. Hi Harrison.
Hey, what's going on?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm tired. I'm exhausted.
I understand that.
My wife is a teacher, or not really a teacher. She works at a school, and they just had graduation. And so I was up till about 1 a.m. last night helping out with that.
Oh, okay.
So I am just wiped.
What is there to do for a school graduation at 1 a.m.?
Clean up.
Okay.
So, and like I wasn't at the school at 1 a.m. That's just the time I actually was back in bed and going to bed. So I wasn't actually up. I think I was there till like 11:30 midnight, somewhere around there. So just recording, running the cameras. So, but I'm exhausted. So, yeah, is what it is.
Yeah. Can we give a shout out to Dylan Jackson?
Oh, yes, totally. 100%.
So Dylan sent both Harrison and I. Wait, why did he have two? I guess because you recorded this app.
Yeah, that's got to be the only reason.
Sorry for the ADD in the middle of that. He sent us brand new microphones. Harrison is on his. I don't have mine hooked up yet because I honestly don't know where it is right now. I've been traveling a bunch and it came when I wasn't here and my wife put it somewhere. I don't know where it is and I'll find it and get that hooked up for the next episode. But thank you, Dylan. We really appreciate you and hopefully hand-me-down microphones.
Hopefully it came with some of that sweet Dylan podcasting voice mix.
I unfortunately don't think the microphones are his secret.
Oh, darn.
He also became a Patreon.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. So
what?
Patreon and microphones.
Dylan, you didn't have to do that, but we appreciate it.
Speaking of which, do we have show notes? We do have show notes. Cool.
So that's cool. That is cool.
All right. So I want to know about your employees. That's what I'm most curious about right now.
It's not just one. It's two.
Yeah, plural. Employees, plural.
Employees. So we've got two part-time people. One of them is an intern. They were actually one of my students, and I've known them since they were basically born. So they've lived in the community for years. They grew up around here. I've known them. They've been in the same church and kind of environment as us. And so he came by looking for an internship. And at the same time, the same week that he came by was the first week of our first part-time guy. His name is Ben. What? You're looking confused.
I'm sorry. I have a pest. 1 second, please. You can keep talking.
Okay. And so Ben and Parker are the names of the guys. And so Ben is originally a computer programmer, has been for the last 10 years. He is still currently programming, and he wanted to kind of get out of the house and try something else a little bit different. And so, oh, you got a cat. Nice.
It's not my cat, and it's in my shop.
Oh, it's not your cat.
And the weird thing is all the doors are closed. So, okay, bye. I don't know how long the cat's been in here.
Oh, that's not good. Do you need to let it out?
At least a few hours.
But
I should let it out.
Anyways, and so he started 2 weeks ago, right after our last podcast. I think it's been 2 weeks since we last podcasted. So he started right after that. So he's come in maybe four days total so far. And he's been absolutely awesome. Very, very good attention to detail. He's not nearly as fast as me or Weston, but I would prefer him to be slow and to learn. He asks good questions. He's definitely got an interest in it. And so far I really like him, and I want to hang on to him as long as we can. So real happy with him so far.
So wait, that was the intern or that was the guy you hired before?
That's the guy we actually hired.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then the intern, Parker, we're kind of splitting. I'm basically trying to make sure I have one of them in and alternating their days. And so I have someone there every day, but it's either Parker or Ben. There probably will be some overlap eventually, but we're still trying to get systems figured out and get them up to speed. Right now, they're helping, but at a much limited capacity because there's a lot to teach both of them. Ben has 0 experience with CNC, and Parker took my intro to CNC class at university. And so Parker knows a little bit more than Ben, but Ben's picking it up really quick.
So Ben is hire, Parker is intern?
Yeah, Parker's just for the summer.
Okay. I'll have to keep them straight eventually here.
And then Ben, I'd like to eventually have full-time. So he's starting out at 2 days a week. I think this week he goes up to 3 days a week. And then in a couple weeks, we're going to try to get him up to 4 and maybe eventually full-time.
Nice.
So he is a remote programmer for a game. And he's been doing that for like 10 years. And so he's kind of doing that while working for us. And so he can kind of flex both of them depending on what the needs are, which is nice. So he's not fully dependent upon us.
That's super ideal for a first employee.
Yeah. And he likes getting out of the house and like, cause he's been programming basically ever since he got out of high school and basically been remote programming for the last 10 years. And he kind of wants to get out and experience some more and leave the house for work. I don't believe he's married or anything like that. I think he's the same age as me and Weston. I don't know if I feel like I'm older than him, but Weston might be younger. So I feel like he might be in between us, but I don't know for sure. Parker's definitely younger. He's still in university, junior or sophomore year. He just finished either his sophomore or junior year. I'm not sure which. I know he's got at least 1 more, maybe 2 more years. And he's going in for mechanical engineering.
So what have you been learning in terms of like getting them trained up?
Right now, it's very basic. This is the machine. This is how you load a part. This is the oh shit button. This is the start the machine button. If it has any alarms or anything, ask us a question. And it's very, we're not having them do, we're having them basically only touch the stuff that we're doing high volume production, where all of our systems are very, very well laid out. And just getting them comfortable on the machines and the controllers.
Okay. What are you learning? Like if you were to bring on a third person, what would you do differently?
As of this stage, I don't know of anything that I would do differently. But it's only been a week or 2. I think I would definitely want to get some, I mean, it depends on what skill level people come in at, because both of these guys are literally blank slates and know nothing. So we're teaching them from the ground up. I've had a little bit of time with Parker in an educational setting, but Ben has literally never seen a CNC machine in his life. Although, well, I wouldn't say in his life. Like, he's never interacted with one outside of our shop. But the nice thing about Ben being a programmer is that he can look at the code and I can explain what the machine's going to do, and he can kind of understand the coding side a little bit better. And so, like, specifically on the Doosan, it's a little bit more complex. And to get it to do certain things, you actually have to type in the code rather than having a nice button for it. And so, like, I can kind of explain to him, like, the logic of how the G code works. And it's a very low-level programming language, so it's very simple for him to kind of pick up and understand that. But as we go, I'm definitely going to need to start documenting some things, or have them document things as they're learning, like, and kind of have them create their own documents that will then pass down. Because we do have a computer we're getting set up in the back for them, and I'd like them to start doing some tasks in their free time. Like, if we don't have stuff for them to do, I'd like them to do some documentation of some kind to kind of, because, like, I don't necessarily know what needs to go in the documents because I don't have all the questions. But if they have a question, I want them to ask us, and I want it to be documented. That way, if it comes up again, we have a record of it.
Okay. This gets a little bit difficult because I want to ask what they're struggling with, but this also is probably not the kind of thing that we can air publicly.
I mean, they're not
really when you only have 2 employees and we can't generalize.
Well, there's not really struggling with anything at this point because they're still learning everything. So like, I wouldn't say they're struggling with anything. I would definitely say they're both significantly slower than us, and that's to be expected. It was funny because like the second day Ben was in the shop, one of the jobs that we do, it's literally a 1 minute, it's a 40-second cycle on the lathe, and we had to run 500 pieces. And so it's literally load, unload, 8 hours of just that. And he definitely wasn't as fast as we are at it because he didn't get it all done in one day, which is okay. But he kind of joked at the end of the day, he's like, you know, we had him working on that, and then we had the Doosan and the UMC running production jobs both, and me and Weston were kind of keeping those machines going. And he's like, you guys are ninjas. He's like, I never saw either one of you at the UMC or the Doosan, but every time I turned around, they were just running. And I was like, yeah, we've gotten pretty good at changing him out and keeping him going while doing other tasks. So... But like I said, I would much rather them be slower and not risk damaging the machines or producing bad parts. And so I'm totally fine with them being slower as they're kind of learning and kind of getting their footing on everything.
Do you let them wear headphones?
Yeah, depending on what they're doing. So like Ben, when he was at the machine all day, we got a second AC unit installed.
Oh,
and
nice.
It just got turned on last Thursday. But before that, Ben was working at that station. We didn't have AC, and it was one of the hottest areas in the shop. And he's just sitting there doing the same thing over and over again. So I was like, yeah, you can put in headphones. That's fine. I went and I got him a fan to stick by the station because you're just in a hot area all day. And so like, I'm trying to create an environment that he really likes. And he's brought it up several times that he appreciates how much we are trying to make him comfortable rather than just trying to, you know, yell at him to get stuff done. And so, but that's the type of environment, like I'm treating him the same way I would want to be treated if I was learning all this stuff. Because a couple of years ago, I was in those shoes. I knew absolutely nothing. And I wanted to work at a place like this, and I wanted to learn all this stuff. But there was no one that wanted to give me the time of day to hire me and teach me. And so I just figured it all out on my own.
So what are you going to do the first time that you have an employee crash a machine? Because it's a matter of time. It's a when, not an if.
It's a when, not an if. I don't think I'm going to flip out. I will flip out on myself a lot faster than I will on someone else. And the reason I know that is because I've had stuff like that happen, not at work, just with friends and family. You know, stuff hit the fan. And generally, I don't fly off the handles very easily at other people. I will at myself, but ironically, if someone else were to crash my machine, I think I would actually take it better than if I crashed the machine, just because I have a sense of pride, and crashing it just really damages that. But like if someone else does it, then it's a learning opportunity for them. And I just like, I know it is for me as well, but it feels personal for me versus you kind of are a little bit more removed when it happens to someone else, even if it's on your own equipment. So it's going to happen, but we're going to do the best we can to make sure that we create guardrails in a way that they don't have the opportunity to screw something up without at least us being present and making sure that it's not as bad as it could be, if that makes sense. They could fat finger something and it could crash. And at that point, there's not much I can do. Like eventually they are going to have enough control that I can't sit there and babysit them all the time. But as I've told both of them, if you're ever in doubt, don't hit the button. Come ask us, come grab us to come double check your work. Because I don't want you to feel the pressure of a schedule to get stuff done and to rush into something and cause a problem. I would much rather you take your time and grab me. If you keep asking me the same question over and over again, and you like aren't learning, that could become a problem. But I would much rather err that side than the other. So, but like I'm still extremely green in all of this. Like I'm learning just as much as they are. And like it's very easy for me. They're gonna slow us down, and they have slowed us down in the short term, where I will spend, an hour going into detail where I could go the simple route and be like, just push this button and just load this part, and then, not go into detail. I try to take the time to go through and explain things so they understand what steps they're doing and why, rather than just telling them, do this and then do this. I'm trying to tell them, okay, when you hit this button, this means it goes, you got to be on this page, and you got to do like going through all the different elements that go into why the system is working and what could go wrong. So I don't know if that explains it well, but that's what I'm attempting to do.
I'm getting ready for a new hire here. Not quite as much of a commitment as you're doing. I am currently working on building out systems for a social media person. So I'm trying to find like a, probably like a, teenager or a college kid to run the Audacity, the Subtract, and the Taps and Patience, like Instagram channel or Instagram pages, and probably posting shorts for us.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I've been thinking about that too. It's a very different level of commitment to bring someone in for 5 hours a week as a contractor than like what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, they come in, they're there for all day, 8 hours a day, and then they leave. So, and like 4:30 will roll. They come in typically from 8 to 4:30 with a 30-minute lunch break, and 4:30 will roll around. I'll be like, all right, you're off the clock. and then I'll work for, another 2 or 3 hours after they're gone.
Catching up on everything that they are still slow on.
Not necessarily. We got a lot going on right now. And last week was a pretty stressful week. Weston was sick on Monday, and I didn't have anyone on Monday, so it was just me. And we didn't get as much done on Monday as we needed to, and it really put us behind. Like I had that Xometry job that I started out with 4 or 5 weeks to get done, and I got it all done in like 2 days, right before it was supposed to be due.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And like, me and Weston had a nice long conversation about that. Why does this keep happening? Or not really keep happening, but what can we do to prevent that from happening? And that one was a very unique situation because like we took the job and then we ordered the material. And then while we were waiting for the material to come, we didn't have anything going on. So that's when we went and did all the shop tours and stuff because we were actually slow. And then right after we did all those shop tours is when we started getting buried in work. And we had a couple, rush jobs come through. And it seems like every time I would start to work on that, something else would get put in front of it with an earlier due date. And so stuff kept getting put in front of it where, that's 3 weeks out. And, some customer wants these parts in 2 weeks. So that I got to get those done first and stuff like that. And then because Xometry, that particular job was an ITAR job, Weston didn't put it into ProShop.
Oh, interesting.
And so if you're looking at the ProShop to-do list, it didn't show up on there with its due date. You had to go to Xometry. And because we haven't really been focused on Xometry, it wasn't always at the top of my personal head. So if there was times I could have fit it in, it wasn't on my list, so I didn't think of it.
Why can't you put the job in ProShop? I mean, obviously you can't. Well, actually, I say obviously, but it's not obvious. I assume ProShop is online, so you can't upload the models and drawings, but couldn't you put everything else in?
Potentially. I'll be honest, Weston is handling that side of things. I'm still very lightly trained on ProShop. I'm picking up stuff from Weston. So that was a decision Weston made, and I don't know the logic between why or why not it would go in ProShop. If I had the same mindset, and that's what I brought up in our conversation, was like we could just have a dummy file in there or something. That way, at least it's still on the schedule. at the very least. So you can look at it and go, oh, that's a Xometry job, even if we have to keep all the other stuff off of it because of ITAR. And I'm pretty sure ProShop is ITAR compliant. I think that's part of the reason we got it from the get-go was because it was, but don't quote me on that because, like I said, that's been kind of Weston's area more than mine. I'm using the system. I don't know all the stuff in it. So, and he's trying to train and get the new guys up and going on ProShop as well. So,
to be able to like look at jobs and add inspection data and that kind of thing.
Check in material whenever it comes in, add in times. We're going to probably have them put all of our tooling inventory in there at some point. So like all of our toolbox, we know how many end mills we actually have and when we need to reorder, stuff like that. Because right now, even with ProShop, we've only got maybe 10 tools that are actually in ProShop, and we're not really tracking inventory levels currently just because we haven't got around to it.
I would caution you about that. Tracking end mill inventory in ERP is like a big lift, and something like a simple Kanban system, I think, is more effective for managing inventory of tools.
Yeah, and that could be, but when it comes to placing the orders, I think ProShop can generate that stuff.
Yeah,
and so they will still need to get inputted in there, even if we are using a Kanban to actually decide when to order.
Okay, yeah, that would be. I think that would be much easier for you guys. Like Arda has that Kanban generator now, the free Kanban generator on their website. I would just generate a bunch of Kanbans, and then whenever you need more, go stick the card on Weston's desk.
Yeah,
and he can put them in ProShop then.
So, but yeah, just trying to get it all figured out. There's a lot to figure out, and so staying busy, staying hooked up. That's for sure.
I have definitely been busy, less with direct machining stuff and more in the kind of teaching and training. I am done with the thing that I was doing where I was like teaching one class early in the morning and then driving a couple hours and then teaching another class in the evening and then staying at a hotel halfway in between. I'm glad that's done. I finished up this week at a shop called Modern Forge, doing some training for Next Gen, doing some Fusion training. And that was pretty cool. One, just like seeing, well, I mean, they're a forging shop. Seeing that was really cool. They had a ton of just massive, like 3-story tall presses and hammers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they had some really cool systems where like they were like having a robot hand the workpiece to a human who would grab it in tongs and then stick it into their power hammer, and then the power hammer would whack it, and then like the robot would pick it up and put it in the done bin. But like they couldn't, they said they weren't quite able to get the robot to get it in the right place inside the power hammer reliably. Mm-hmm. And so they were kind of using the robot as like a helper to hand the part to the human. Because some of these forgings were like, 50, 60, 100 pounds. And you'd have to hold them with a pair of tongs because they would be hot.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of work for a human, obviously.
Yeah. Are the tongs like suspended, like counterlifted, or are they actually picking the whole weight of it up?
I never actually saw them do anything heavy. I only saw light stuff when I was there.
Okay.
So when I was there, no. But I can't imagine how you would do it without them. I mean, the guys were pretty buff, but
yeah.
I don't know how they would do the heavier stuff. But
so whenever they're forging like that, are they taking like a billet material and hitting it multiple times? Like, is it multiple dies, or is it just like they put in like a preheated piece of round bar or square bar and it just one die and they just hit it multiple times until it fills the die?
Most of what I saw is they would start with like round bar, and then they would have like 4 different stations on the hammer, and they would just go like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gotcha.
Just doing one at a time per per hammer strike, and they would just, move it from position to position.
And they didn't have the tongs in there when it came down, right? They would just put it in, back out, it would hit, grab it, go to the next station, back out, hit, grab it, go to the next station, back out and hit.
Nope, they held it the whole time. The jaws had like a relief in there where
really?
where the tongs would fit. And you had like, an inch of extra material or whatever.
Interesting.
And then after it was forged, they would put it through a set of trimming dies.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes
sense. So they would forge it, it would have a ton of flashing, then they would put it through the trimming dies, they would trim it to shape, and then it would go to whatever post-processing they did. So they had...
So if you could get a robot to work, it would stay held onto the material in each station.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And I don't know, it sounded like they were working on that stuff, but it's not easy to automate that kind of thing. Much more difficult than like part loading a machine.
Oh yeah.
These poor robots were just like completely covered in slag and,
oh, no doubt,
forging dust. They were, I want to say they were Fanics. I believe they were yellow at very least, or originally they were yellow.
I was going to say originally yellow.
And they were just black. Like,
yeah.
Like they had just come out of a coal mine. That's what they looked like.
Yeah.
But, and then so for the training, it was kind of interesting because they were using Power Mill. They were using Power Mill to program. And I think they were growing and bringing on a couple new people because they had like one license of Power Mill, which is like $10,000 a year or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, okay, let's look at Fusion, which is like $600 a year instead of, adding 5 more seats of Power Mill. Like that's enough to hire another person. And, when I was originally talking to them, I was like, oh yeah, Fusion will do anything that Power Mill does. It has all the same toolpaths and everything. It's all Autodesk. And I was both right and wrong. It had all the toolpaths, and if you tinkered with it enough, you could get Fusion to give you really better results than Power Mill.
Mm-hmm.
But Power Mill had a lot of very useful, like mold specific and surfacing specific tools that Fusion was missing.
Gotcha.
So one example was one of the processes they did all the time. So these are, dies that are either being pressed together with hundreds of tons of force or in a power hammer and, bang, bang, bang.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would break all the time and wear down and need to be repaired. And they had a robot with like a MIG welder on it that was able to weld with that like hard facing material.
Mm-hmm.
And they 3D printed back up their dies.
Oh, that's cool.
So they would like grind them down and then, the robot would 3D print in the new material. Then they would machine that back off. But defining the stock in Fusion for that, like the area where the robot added back in more material was very tedious. Like you had to model it basically. And
you couldn't just have it air cut, like adaptive, like imagine it's a solid block of material and like you might waste some cycle time, but you don't have to spend all that time modeling it.
So the problem is these dies were like 36 by 24. Mm-hmm. And that air cutting was like 6 hours of cycle time.
Could you select the surfaces and do an extrude out and create a different duplicate the model, grab the surfaces, extrude out, and then cut away all of the areas that you didn't need?
That is basically what we tried to do. Like that was kind of plan A. And what happened is these models, because there were some fairly complex surfaces that weren't maybe expertly modeled, and trying to grab all the different surfaces or even just like project the lines into a sketch was a nightmare. I think if the geometry had been simple, it would have been fine. But these were relatively complex parts. And even if like just projecting in the outside border of the cavity, the geometry would be so broken that Fusion wouldn't recognize it as a closed profile, even though it looked closed. And so then you would spend like an hour trying to figure out where, the edge of the geometry is. we tried to also just like use some of the surfacing tools I should say like the surface body tools, the surface modeling tools to like expand out or project it. But Fusion just wasn't having it. It would freak out and die and crash on us. So the best workflow we ended up with that is just like doing a sketch on top of it and just with the line tool kind of tracing around and then extruding that up and then going to a side view and kind of doing the same thing and extruding that over and just grabbing the intersection. It worked, but it took 20 minutes or whatever each time. And PowerMill just had a tool to do it. PowerMill just kind of understood the weird geometry and selected it all together, and you could just offset it in a couple mouse clicks.
Gotcha.
It also had some nice tools for like, you know how like containment boundaries on like basically any toolpath, but particularly on surfacing toolpaths. In Fusion, if you wanted to modify like a containment boundary, you'd have to like bring it into a sketch and then modify that sketch and then grab that as your containment boundary. In PowerMill, are you tracking?
I am. I'm just you can do it on the model too. I guess I'm confused as to.
So imagine, all right. So imagine a really simple like injection mold or a die where you had just a donut shape in the middle, right? And if you wanted to grab the outside of the donut as the containment boundary, it would be really easy, right? Okay, but let's say for whatever reason you want to make that into a square, or you want to, expand out a couple corners of your donut. Like then you'd have to go into the design environment, make a new sketch, and then grab that as your containment boundary, right?
Gotcha. So basically, geometry that is not in your model.
If you wanted to, like, it's in Fusion, it's easy to reference off the geometry that's in your model. But if you want to modify that, then you basically have to go redraw it as a new sketch.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So PowerMill had a lot of cool tools where you could just like drag the profile out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which was really handy in convincing it to like not cut places that it shouldn't, or to get it to cut places that it was a little bit hesitant to.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So I don't know. PowerMill actually has its uses.
I mean, most softwares out there will typically have a couple things that they excel at compared to all other softwares. It's just kind of like different machines. Like all machine builders will typically have one or two features that they're just better at than everyone else.
Now, I will say we were able to get better toolpaths with Fusion, but it took us longer to get there. And really, they sent out, like, they would machine them, then they would send them over to the polishing department, and like they would get polished. And, if your step over was a little bit uneven or like some of the corners were funky, it didn't really matter because they would just, have some dude with a die grinder polish them out.
Yeah. Because they weren't hyper accurate because they're just castings.
Yeah.
Or forgings.
We did. So the place where Fusion really shined, though, compared to PowerMill, is they had like, there's kind of a stack of tooling where like the dies PowerMill did great on. But there was like kind of this stack up of tooling where they had like an adapter plate and then like a mounting plate. And there's a couple other things in there. Probably like all of these die sets were like 10 components, and like 2 of them had surfacing and the rest were kind of just blocks with holes. Fusion was so much better for the blocks with holes. And I actually got them set up with Toolpath. And Toolpath just nailed the blocks with holes parts. They had been programming those in FeatureCam. And I didn't actually get to see FeatureCam, but nobody there seemed to like it.
Gotcha. And when you did Toolpath, it was basically programming 90% of it?
It was programming 100% of it.
100%? Nice.
Yeah. I think with a little bit of tweaks to the tool library, like getting some speeds and feeds and like getting some drills in there that I didn't have. Shockingly, I didn't have a 1.5-inch drill in my tool library.
What?
Yeah. But like getting that stuff in there to kind of suit like how they do things, I think they could do 100% of the programming in Toolpath. So they like that.
You don't have a 1.5-inch drill for your OM?
No.
That's bigger than the tool holder.
Man, the machines they had were massive.
Oh, I can imagine.
Huge horizontals. They were like, some of the machines literally had like 6 or 7 steps to get up to like operate them.
Oh my.
And I know they said one of the machines, which wasn't even one of their big ones, had believe it was a 6,000 pound table capacity.
Wow.
And I was like, you could put all of my mills on that table, no problem whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So are these Cat 50 or bigger?
Yep, they were all Cat 50.
Cat 50. Is there anything bigger than Cat 50? I mean, I'm sure there is, but
maybe one of the HSKs. I don't know if there's like a Cat 60 or something.
Yeah, Cat 50 might be the biggest. I'm sure now that I've said that, someone listening to the podcast I'm gonna get 10 emails that saying,
well, actually, there's a Cat 85.
Yeah,
it was used between 1977 and 1978. No, actually, our comments we get are generally fantastic.
No, they're awesome. But like, I know there's an HSK 100, and I don't know if that's considered larger than Cat 50. And I feel like there might be an HSK 120, but I don't know for sure. But or something like that. Anyways, it'll be interesting. I'm sure someone will inform me.
Yeah, someone's gonna know. This is so outside of my realm.
Opposite end of the spectrum of you.
The shop was kind of interesting. It was this is what we would kind of define as a dungeon shop, like the actual machine shop. I kind of don't really blame them for it though.
No.
Because their process, like their forging process is so messy.
Yeah.
And they like had a big, like grinding and polishing department. Machining wise, they were actually pretty well squared away. They had a tool library. It was in Power Mill, not in Fusion, but they had a tool library. Like they knew what they were doing. It was just kind of dark and dirty, but
yeah. But you kind of expect that in that type of environment. Like there's certain industries, and like forgings is an industry that I would go, they're not going to be the place with the nice granite floors and the LED lights and, the floors that you could eat off of and everything, nice and shiny. Like that's just not that type of environment. Like it would be, you would spend all your time cleaning and wouldn't get any work done.
Yes. I will say the one thing that was abhorrent to me, they had 2 million pounds of inventory of finished goods and 1 million pounds of steel.
Wow.
And that's not just like, it's not like they were so high volume that they had like 2 weeks of inventory. No, it was years of inventory.
So I don't remember if you mentioned this. What industry did they serve?
Everything. Anyone who needs forging. I saw automotive, I saw firearm, I saw military, I saw consumer good type stuff, construction equipment.
Like there wasn't a sector that they weren't in.
Probably not medical.
Maybe they make the forgings for the big medical machines or something.
Yeah, I think anything that needs forgings, they can and do.
Yeah, makes sense.
But
that's cool.
The amount of inventory was, I did not like. Yeah, this is bad, guys. You don't understand. This is bad, but this is bad.
Mm-hmm. But there are some industries where it might make sense to keep that if it's some sort of, especially if they're in the military and defense. Like you can't in war times, or if you're trying to make sure you have enough on hand that if a war were to break out, you can supply. I can understand keeping extra of that type of stuff on hand just as insurance for if something like that were to happen and you have it all on hand. Because I know that's kind of why Glock has like 2 years of material on hand at any given point, is that like if any type of conflict comes out, they have 2 years to kind of get their stuff figured out.
That's fair, and that would be a good excuse to have the unfinished inventory, like the raw steel inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that argument. However, I asked about this, and the reason they gave me was it's because the press, the forging equipment, the hammer and everything is so big, and it's like the only one they have. They have to keep it running 24/7. So they just make parts, even if they don't have orders for them, to keep their hammer busy. But they don't always, like, the things that they make don't always get ordered. And so they sit around for years.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with that. So I could see the argument being, don't run the machine. Especially if that allows you to have some downtime to go in and work on it or anything like that. If you can kind of schedule that to come in and strategically use those times where you're not running it to do maintenance on it or something. Like if you know it's caught up, or do improvements, there's a lot of different things you could do at that point with downtime.
I didn't say anything. Like, that's not why I was there.
Yeah,
I was there to teach Fusion. I kept my mouth shut, but
yeah. And looking at another industry and coming in and critiquing it.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where it's real easy to do it as an outsider. But I've also been on the other end of that, where we've brought in people from outside coming into companies I've worked at, and they come and suggest all these changes overnight. And it's like, those are great ideas and those have worked, but every industry is a little bit different, and you need to actually sit down, work at an area for a little while, understand why they're doing it, and then suggest changes based on that information.
Yeah.
So like it's a double-edged sword.
I wouldn't say it to their face. I'll just talk about it on the podcast afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's definitely could be a valid critique that makes sense to us. But there definitely could also be reasons that it just doesn't make sense that they've crossed that idea off for.
And again, it was like I didn't walk out of there going, this is a terrible company, this is poorly run. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is actually kind of cool. I don't think I would want to work there just because of the noise and mess. It's not something that I enjoy, but like, they're doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like that robot welder 3D printed repair thing, that was super cool.
Oh yeah, that sounds awesome.
And they were doing 3D scanning with that. So they would take a 3D scan, or they would grind out the damage, take a 3D scan. They used Rhino to like compare it to what it should be, and build the robot cam, to slice it up, into like 3D printer style toolpaths. And that was so cool.
So wait, if they can do that, could they not generate 3D models of stock to remove to import into Fusion?
That's a very good question. I don't know.
Because I feel like that solves your problem right there. If they can scan it and generate a 3D model, just generate your stock and import
that would be super cool.
And just import that into Fusion.
I don't know. That's a really good point.
Like, that gets rid of all your problems.
Yeah. One workflow that we played with was Fusion does especially when you template, it does the roughing better than PowerMill does.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things we were playing with was doing the roughing in Fusion and then exporting the STL of the mesh and bringing that into PowerMill.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked really well, except PowerMill imports it 25.4 times too large. But other than that, it worked really well.
Does it not have the ability to choose what measurement system you're importing it as?
Apparently not.
Oh, okay.
So, or they didn't know how. And I believe STLs are by, I think they're
default to metric, I believe.
Well, I think they're unitless.
They are.
I don't think the standard includes units, but like some companies have like made their own versions where they do shove in the units.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you're right.
But the standard is unitless. So, I don't know. It was interesting. Seeing the big forging stuff was really cool. Like, I've seen a lot of machine shops lately, and I mean, I still enjoy it, but they're not as cool as they were 5 years ago. But man, the big forging stuff was cool. I cannot express the scale of these things to you.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're absolutely massive, and I'm sure the thud of them working as you're kind of in that area, just feeling that in your chest every time it pounds of forging. I can imagine it.
It was nuts. So they also had a huge heat treat set up. I didn't get to go inside there, but they had probably like 2 acres of heat treat ovens.
That's awesome. That's insane.
Yeah. On top of their probably 2 acres of inventory. But anyway.
Yeah. So have you done anything in your shop at all since we last talked, other than cycle your coolant?
I have had 0 time. So I have this problem where I'm busy all week doing like work stuff. And then when I get home, I'm booked solid with family stuff.
Yeah.
So I've had just a few minutes in my shop over the last couple days. Forgive me, I have sinned. I took a Xometry part that I need
don't
to
have
get
anything
down.
against that.
No, I was going to be done with Xometry, but it was a repeat job. So I have all the materials, I have the program, I have the soft jaws, and it'll pay my mortgage in like an afternoon. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. That's one of those rules that I have less of an issue with if you have the time and capacity, because that's what Xometry's for.
Except I don't.
Okay. Then it's a problem.
Yeah. Oh, but Subtract has been doing pretty well. So I don't think we've shipped any more parts since that original 81 we talked about. But we have 10 parts that'll probably go on Tuesday. And then there's 3 slightly more complicated parts that'll be shipping a couple days after that.
So how are people finding your website? Are you doing any type of advertising, or did you just create Subtract Manufacturing and then let Google figure it out?
No. So our website is definitely not good enough on its own. You kind of have to know what Subtract is once you get to our website. Our website is basically just an RFQ form. The first couple orders came from people who have emailed me before asking for parts and I have no quoted. Or just never got around to answering. Sorry, guys. So I kind of cheated and went to those people first and was like, hey, you need those parts still? And a couple of them came back and said yes. One of them was...
So did you...
I believe a listener or maybe just a YouTube watcher.
Have you had an organic... someone you didn't know submit something through the Subtract website?
So nobody I have known personally has submitted one. It's not like a friends and family order. But outside of like the community, no, not yet.
No, I meant like as anyone found your, like, without you talking about it, as someone found it and submitted something.
No, like, and we're so far from that.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, at this point, they would like, you can go to the website subtractmanufacturing.com. Plug. It's like an RFQ form and a couple email addresses. Nobody in their right mind would find this website out of the blue and submit their part to it.
Yeah. Okay.
What we do have looks fairly professional, but there's no background. There's no explanation. Like, we don't even have like, physical addresses or any of the things that make websites look a little bit legitimate. So you basically have to be in the know to be willing to submit a part to it.
So in your cheating or whatever to get it the first few orders through, did they send the stuff to you and then you pushed it through the website, or you entered it in on the back end?
Only the very first one did I enter in the back end.
Okay.
All the other ones came in the front end.
But did they submit it or did you?
They submitted it.
Oh, okay.
I sent them the link and was like, hey, put your parts in here, but they did it.
Okay. Does that process of coming in through the website go automatically into Toolpath?
Into Toolpath, no. It goes into an Airtable document, which we do have some automations in. It builds out a custom. Well, okay, it doesn't build out the customer yet. That's still an in-progress automation. But it like takes the RFQ, it turns the various parts they submit into like separate part line items, and then it builds like a order, like a separate order that has those parts and the customer attached to it.
Gotcha.
And then we stick it into Toolpath. Toolpath spits out a number. We take that number and with a little bit of more information that Toolpath doesn't have, like how risky the part is, we then get to our final number, which we then put into an email template and send to the potential customer.
Gotcha.
So all of this stuff will slowly get automated over time. We're in what I'm calling the mechanical Turk phase, where things seem relatively automated, like from the outside, except it not being instant, you might think it's automated.
Mm-hmm.
But really there's kind of a human working the individual parts behind the
like
screen.
the Amazon camera stores that were actually being watched by Indian workers.
Yeah, exactly.
People. Or whatever that was.
Yeah, and Mechanical Turk is a reference to like a guy
that played
claimed
chess.
that he built a chess playing robot in like the 1500s or something, but it was actually a Turkish dude underneath the table, like moving with magnets or something. Yeah. So we have broken all the goals of where I expected to be at this point. I didn't think we would have much revenue at all on month 1, but we're doing pretty well. So I don't see us growing much in terms of revenue over the next couple months, because we do need to like finish up our website, but we'll get a lot more of the technology kind of nailed down
over time,
kind of grow from there. So yeah, building out the website is probably the most important thing we need to do right now,
especially if that's going to be any organic orders. That needs to be kind of like Xometry, where it's easy and painless.
Well, it is easy. Well, it's fairly easy and painless at this point. Maybe not Xometry easy and painless, but it's pretty good. Yeah. The problem is trust, and our website does not really instill trust.
Yeah.
But speaking of trust, we trust people like our Patreons.
Mm-hmm.
Our Patreons are awesome, and they include, but are not limited to, Nate G, James N, Ben at Prickly Pear Prototypes, Cam S, Shep at Alderson Prototyping, Jacob at Zonum Precision, Jason S, Joshua H, Christian Z, Dylan at Got Chips, Freaky Climber, Prescott at 1Z, 2Z Systems, Trey V, Guy L, Alexander B, Scott at Design the Everything, Jamie at JSpec Engineering, Chris Syke, EJ Nocturnal Weldon, Chris with Thought Bomb Design, and as ever, Jake Brownson. Now, on top of those people, we have new Patreons, Dylan at Protean Machining. Woo-hoo. He sponsors us not just with a couple bucks a month, but also microphones. So thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
Kyle K, Devin at Sinister Machine Works, Jake G, and Greg B. Those are all new Patreons. So everybody, thank you. We really appreciate you. We had a good crop of new guys this week, probably because of the Henry Holsters tour, really. And I wanted to shout out to Devin at Sinister Machine Works. I yelled at him on Facebook for spamming a YouTube video into a bunch of the machining groups. And then he decided to Patreon us anyway. So I'll give him a shout out here. He has a YouTube channel and he did a video that's pretty good about 3D printing in the machine shop. So sorry for yelling at you. Thank you for your patronage. You have bought our support.
Yeah.
So yeah, go check out his video. I'm going to give Jacob Dobbs. Jacob, go put his link down in our description.
Yeah.
Oh, questions. Did I say as ever, Jake Brownson?
You can do it now.
No, as ever, Jake Brownson. So 40 asks, AJ, with your new teaching schedule and the Olem spindle getting rebuilt, yeah, that's happening. Are you doing anything to manage your coolant quality while you're away from the machines for a while, such as a bubbler or a pump to recirculate?
Yeah.
So
your spindle's getting rebuilt, right?
Yeah, totally right now. No, I should do that soon though. So we actually talked about this on Discord. He asked it, I think, originally on Patreon, and then we somehow forgot about last week. I don't know how, but Harrison and I both just blanked on recording last week's episode.
Hey, I was ready, for the record.
Why didn't you say anything?
I thought I did, and like, because you guys asked if I was ready, and I was like, yeah, and because I asked, are we having Weston on as a guest? And then it just didn't happen.
Yeah, because then I just forgot.
Yeah, because I was going to try.
It was really busy for me.
Because I was going to try to schedule. Which, by the way, we're going to try to get Weston on, and so if you guys have any questions for him, I'm not sure when we're going to make it happen because we got to schedule it, which I was trying to do. Then we can have him on, and if there's any questions about, is it really that bad working with Harrison, or stuff like that, you can ask him. Submit questions.
I think we should have Weston and Easton on at the same time.
That might be a little hectic.
You have no idea how often I want to call Weston Easton. Anyway, so he's asking about how I manage coolant when I'm not running the machine as much. I have been running the machine on the weekends. And so I'm hoping, like, that seems to have been enough, at least for now. Yesterday, I did just like turn on the coolant on both machines and let it run for like an hour just to get, some aeration and circulation. And when I posted that as an Instagram story, I'm blanking on her name, but the lady who runs MilSpec Machining, MilSpec Engineering, the MilSpec shop. She's on Practical Machinist too. She did a reel responding to my story and showed me like the bubbler that she uses, and it looked cool, and I need to buy one of those. So to answer your question right now, no, I haven't really been doing anything except trying to make parts, but I should.
Yeah. We need to, speaking of coolant, we need to go through and use the Freddy on our tanks again, I'm sure. Especially the UMC, because it's basically been running nonstop. The other day, the float level was off, and I pulled the float out, and it just had what amounted to aluminum dust just caked onto it. So we really need to pump that tank.
Rebecca's her name at MilSpec. And it's MilSpec Manufacturing.
MilSpec Manufacturing. Yeah, didn't she just do a guest on Dylan's podcast?
Yep.
Yeah, I was listening to that the other day. She's got a cool logo. They got a cool logo now. Like
they do.
They're rebranding.
And they have a 1500 with a robot.
Yeah, which I really want to hear more about because that kind of surprised me.
Yeah. Hey, Rebecca, you want to come on the podcast? Jacob, new homework assignment. Though I feel like there's a mandatory waiting period between someone being on Within Tolerance and being on our podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we are absolutely copying Within Tolerance. Like, don't get me wrong. We just follow whatever Dylan does. But we don't want people to know about that.
Even though we talk about it every time on the podcast.
Oh, did I say the quiet part out loud?
Dylan is like the guy we're always copying our homework off of.
Yeah. He's the smart kid in class.
I see there's a question for me, and I'm not sure how to answer it.
That's the same guy on the same questions, aka how are you managing your coolant?
Oh, how am I managing? Oh, okay. We've entered all the information onto our machines into ProShop, and it's supposed to be generating scheduled maintenance tasks on our machines. We haven't hit one of those scheduled maintenance yet because we just entered it all in like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But we probably need to jump in and do some of it a little bit early because I think it's like 3 months or 6 months. I'm not sure. It depends on which maintenance task it is, but we have some that are weekly, some that are monthly, and some that are 3 months and some that are 6 months. And I don't remember which one the coolant falls into. But I do know that, especially as we're running our machines more and more and more, I do need to get some sort of coolant filtering devices. And actually, I need to go back and look at some of the old Saunders videos or Grimsmo videos about that because I don't remember which one of them had it, but they had something that looked like it had like 3 stainless steel balls that were floating in the coolant, and then it would the coolant would it would sit on top or float on top, and then it would skim off the top of the coolant and go through a filter pack that would magnetize to the back of the machine. It was constantly circulating to pull off everything off the top of your coolant. I'm not sure if I'm describing it well, but this is a video that I remember seeing maybe back in like 17 or 18. And
I don't remember that. I know they had filtration on their coolant like pump, coming out, but I don't remember them talking about skimmers or anything.
Yeah, I want to go look at that one because especially on I think it was the lathe. The lathe, I believe, is a grease machine versus the other machines are oil. And I noticed that the lathe's coolant is a lot dirtier than it's also a much smaller tank. So I think it's just a lot more concentrated. And so I need something to skim off the top of that. And then on the mills, there's, especially on the UMC, we have pretty good filtration of the large chips, but it seems like really fine chips are getting through that filter system. So I need a way to pull those out, like really fine chips. So,
yeah. The Tormach's nice because it comes with not just one but two filters. So there's a filter on the like main coolant pump, and then there's also a filter on the washdown.
Yeah.
And the washdown, I can just kind of run whenever I want, even if I'm running parts that don't need coolant. I'll just like sometimes leave the washdown on, and it'll just filter and filter and filter my coolant.
Yeah, that's nice. Which is another thing that I need to add to both the VF and the Doosan is some sort of washdown coolant in the machine to get the chips to the front. Because that stainless job, or the steel job for the battleship parts we were running generated a lot of chips, and about three or four times a day I'd have to go in and shove all the chips into the augers so that they could then come forward to the front. And there was one time that I shoved a whole bunch of chips in that it actually clogged the conveyor itself because it was so many. And so we need to come up with a system for that because it builds up really fast in that back corner and on either side of the y-axis way covers. So, we did get a mist coolant system. It hasn't shown up yet, really? but we ordered it for the UMC.
Which one did you get?
Mist away.
Okay. So a mist collector.
Yeah, mist collector.
Okay. Not a mist coolant.
Oh, sorry. Mist collector. And we looked at the Royal system, Mist away, and Haas, and we got a lot of feedback that basically said don't touch the Royal. There was it was a lot of people that said don't, and then there was a handful of people that just loved it. But the bulk of it was against it compared to Mist away. And then those that had used Mist away, it wasn't the best, but it was pretty good. And it was just slightly better than the Haas system, which we talked to a Haas rep, apps guy, and he recommended Mist away as well. But we were willing to try the Haas one, but then Weston checked on it and they didn't offer it for the UMC for whatever reason. And so it was only Mist away was our only option. So
how much did it cost?
I don't remember because we were going to get the 700, but it was back ordered. So we upped it to the 1100 size. So I want to say it was 3,000, 2,000, somewhere in that range. But we did get the one that has the auto sensing. It's got like a power clamp or a sensor that you plug onto the flood coolant. And so when your flood coolant runs, it automatically kicks it on.
That's cool.
So,
yeah, because Tormach has one now that's pretty cheap that I want.
Yeah. I don't think it's powerful enough for the UMC, but it might actually be powerful enough for the lathe, which is going to eventually need one. So, but that's one thing that we've noticed is we got an air quality sensor in our shop, and anything above 150 or 200 is hazardous. And whenever we were running the production job on the UMC and the Doosan, which the Doosan finished up that job last week or 2 weeks ago, it was showing like a particle count in the 400s, which is not good. And you could watch the UMC whenever it finished and that chip fan would come in, and you could just see a coolant mist coming out of all of the cracks everywhere in the actual box, anywhere air can leak out. And a bunch of it was coming right out the chip conveyor itself. It looked like this mist just dumping straight into the, the chips. It was just, it's not good. So we're going to hopefully fix that with the Mist away. Go ahead.
Just some odds and ends that I have left to mention. I'm starting another new class here, continuing my teaching craziness with Caterpillar. I'll have some Caterpillar students for, I think it's either 2 or 3 weeks, which that'll be fun because that also coincides with my DOC class. So those are like 12-hour days. Yay. I have that quick Xometry job to wrap up. And, we mentioned the Henry Holster shop tour video, right?
I think you mentioned that might be the reason we got so many new Patreons, but we haven't actually talked about it. But that was an amazing tour. I really like that video, so good job. Kudos on that.
So kudos to Andrew Henry.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another video just came out today on making some small polycarbonate parts. And I just recorded a video today on Obsidian, which is the software that I use. So I'm curious to see how people react to that. But yeah, I think that's kind of the end of my odds and ends.
Yeah.
Subtract is going to bring in a Swiss lathe guy.
Yeah. But I've got some vacation traveling coming up in the next couple months, and I'm going to try to go see a whole bunch of shops in Canada. So
in Canada, cool.
In Canada,
any shops that make sharp things?
Hopefully.
That would be cool.
And
walk up there. Do you know who I am? I have a podcast.
Yeah, he ain't gonna know who I am. And then
we got Audacity Micro got a shout out on a Saunders video.
Yeah, I did see that. Was it a video or a which video?
His most recent one about the 1500.
Oh, okay. I'll have to go watch.
It's like literally the last 4 seconds after everybody's already stopped watching the video. But
okay,
that was kind of cool.
I'll have to go watch that one. But yeah, there's that, and then I'm hoping I can stop in at maybe Lakewood Machine and Tool as well, because they're pretty close by up there as well.
I don't know them.
Practical Machinist.
Yeah, sorry, I don't really pay attention to Practical Machinist.
So I met him at Titans of CNC when we went down there.
Okay.
Dude's like 8 foot tall. Did not realize how tall he was. I look like a child compared to him.
And you're not small.
So, yeah. So I'd love to go see his shop as well. But I just like going around and seeing other people's shops as much as I can. We actually have a guy coming to our shop tomorrow.
Cool.
He's just coming to see it. So that'll be cool to show him around. And then, yeah, I've had a couple Patreons that have been reaching out, asking questions, and I always enjoy helping them out. It's definitely good to like talk to some of these guys on a more personal level, because I don't know if you felt this, but like it's real easy to feel like you're getting left behind or overwhelmed, and that doesn't always get talked about. And so it's good to like have people that you can vent to about some of that stuff.
Yep, definitely.
I mean, that's the whole reason we do this podcast. At least that's one of the main reasons I do it, because life's hard. I've crashed a machine several times. If you haven't noticed, new spindles, like it's not easy. But it's good to have people to lean on and to vent things to. So, well, guys, that's been it. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hopefully my voice has been a little bit more soothing thanks to Dilden, but we'll find out later.
Dilden?
So, anyways, thanks for hanging out with us. This has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Subtract. And wait, what are you? Are you still? Do you want to go be outroed as Audacity or as Subtract?
We're still Audacity.
You're still Audacity?
Until Subtract starts making more money. Then we'll go to Subtract. But...
All right. Here with AJ from Audacity Micro. Hashtag maybe a little bit Subtract. Or something. I don't know. I'm weird. We'll see you guys later.
That'll be our tagline, our motto.
Taps and patience, our daily grind. In this machine shop, we'll always find joy and struggles, all intertwined. Taps and patience, one of a kind.